In world history, there are many rankings. The most terrifying among them are the most terrible female executioners in the history of mankind. In this ranking, in third place is a young 23-year-old girl with an angelic appearance, Irma Grese, a person whose crimes against humanity shock even 77 years later. Irma was born in Germany into a large family. When she turned 13, the girl's mother, unable to endure her husband's constant philandering, committed suicide. The woman drank hydrochloric acid, leaving 5 children to her philandering head of the family. Left to fend for themselves, Irma's siblings managed as best they could. Irma herself dropped out of school 2 years later, then joined the League of German Girls, in whose ranks she took the most active part. After trying several different professions, in 1942, the already 19-year-old Irma responded to the call, joining the ranks of SS volunteers. Volunteer Grese gained her first experience communicating with prisoners in the Ravensbrück concentration camp. Apparently, the acquired skills showed Grese that she had found her calling. Therefore, after some time, in March 1943, the girl requested a transfer to the system of concentration camps, Auschwitz-Birkenau. Thus, in one of the most horrific camps, the women's section of Polish Auschwitz, the star of Irma Grese rose on the horizon of bloody crimes. The girl so zealously set about her work that she quickly became the second person in the camp after the commandant, receiving the position of senior overseer. Grese obtained this post by outperforming all other candidates with a huge advantage, and there is nothing at all surprising in such an appointment. The fair-haired beauty among the camp prisoners had several resounding nicknames, which spoke very well of why Grese rose so high. The beautiful beast, the blonde devil, the angel of death. More than 30,000 women and girls, prisoners of the concentration camp, became dependent on Grese's will, mood, and whims. The territory over which the Angel of Death reigned supreme consisted of 30 barracks, each housing about 1,000 people. By the way, externally Grese looked stunning, which often misled newly arrived prisoners. Always chic and neat hairstyle, a tight-fitting blue jacket to match her eye color, worn in violation of the uniform. To this was added the scent of exquisite perfumes. And before the prisoners, the first torment was born in the flesh. To daily look at a person from another world, in ragged and smelly rags, who had not forgotten what hot water, a warm bed, and a hearty meal were. True, in the hands of this representative of another world was a whip, inlaid with pearls. The beautiful monster wanted beauty to be in everything. Regarding Grese, after her liberation, one of the prisoners, Gisela Pearl, recalled, "Irma Grese was one of the most attractive girls I had ever met. She had an angelic face and innocent eyes of sky blue color. Walking through the concentration camp, Irma immediately attracted attention. She was envied and at the same time admired for her beauty. The SS queen liked to wear clothes that matched her eye color, and even her whip was skillfully decorated with precious stones. But if Grese had limited herself only to torments related to appearance, she would hardly have achieved her position." The overseer loved to observe the experiments that the infamous doctor, Mengele, conducted on people. By the way, Grese herself selected the next victims for his experiments. Perhaps what she saw spurred the overseer to introduce her own innovations in the torture of prisoners. Grese's particular passion was pregnant women, whom she did not touch until a certain moment. Torture began at the moment of childbirth. The blonde devil would tie the birthing women's legs and could watch their torment for hours. Most often, a baby born in such conditions died, as did its mother. If the prisoner survived, Grese, having sated herself with the sight of suffering, would send her to the gas chamber. This was the second entertainment of the female executioner. She loved to personally select those who were to end their days in the gas chamber. Naturally, first and foremost, the sadist was interested in relatives who needed to be separated. The gas chamber also awaited all girls and women with good looks. Greece could not tolerate rivals, even among prisoners. Greece also maintained her own kennel, where the dogs were kept on starvation rations, and sometimes not fed at all. This was done specially. If any of the prisoners fell from exhaustion, a pack of hungry dogs would immediately be unleashed on them. What happened next is not hard to guess. Irma wore special boots with iron-clad and pointed toes. Such footwear served her for beating prisoners who had somehow offended her, or simply those who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and caught her eye. For any reason, Grese would whip the prisoners with her lash, often stopping only when the unfortunate victim no longer showed any signs of life. When the senior overseer was in a good mood, she preferred to spend time playing games, naturally, with a sadistic twist. Her favorite was Russian roulette. Grese would place several prisoners in a circle, then take a revolver with one bullet and, in turn, aim it at the prisoners, pulling the trigger. Sometimes this game changed. The overseer would simply point the pistol, and the unfortunates would guess when she would pull the trigger. Grese's sadism exceeded all imaginable and unimaginable limits. A clear proof of this was that in her room, the lampshade for the desk lamp was made from the tanned skin of a camp prisoner. At the same time, some prisoners recalled that Grese sometimes astonished them with her attention and participation towards the inmates. The blonde devil showed particular favor to the orchestra musicians. Why? It remains unclear. For example, when one of the prisoners complained that her sister had fallen ill, Grese ordered the sick woman to be moved to the kitchen, ordering an increased ration. Considering herself the most beautiful girl in Auschwitz, the angel of death was an overt nymphomaniac. Among her lovers were Dr. Mengele and the commandant of the Auschwitz camp. But not satisfied with pleasures with male representatives, as a true nymphomaniac, Grese periodically entertained herself with women, choosing partners from among the prisoners. This already demonstrated the perversion of the overseer's psyche, and possibly simply deviations that developed against the background of constant cruelty and sadism. When the Red Army began to approach Auschwitz, Grese participated in the transfer of prisoners to the Ravensbrück camp. And when that camp also came under threat, in March 1945, Irma Grese was transferred to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, where she was arrested by British troops on April 17, 1945. At the time of liberation, about 60,000 people were still alive in the camp, and no less than 10,000 unburied bodies. Therefore, Grese, along with other overseers, dug mass graves under escort for the burial of the unfortunate corpses. After this, investigators from the British Army's Military Prosecutor's Office initiated a case to investigate the crimes of the overseers and service personnel of the death camps. Among the accused was Irma Grese. A total of 45 people were involved in the case, who were accused of committing crimes against prisoners, violating the rules of war, torture, and inhumane treatment of prisoners in the Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen concentration camps. The so-called Belsen Trial began on September 17, 1945. The specially created Belsen Military Tribunal presented irrefutable evidence of the crimes of all 45 convicted individuals. Despite the fact that today many claim the resilience of war criminals at trial, this was not the case. Grese herself, at the beginning of the trial, actively prevaricated, trying to clear her name. She claimed that she ended up in the camp not by her own will, but by a decision of the Imperial Labor Service. And only after realizing that leniency was not to be expected, Grese resigned herself, demonstrating that very supposed resilience. Based on the totality of the crimes and the evidence presented to the court, 11 people were sentenced to death by hanging, among whom was Grese. On the night before her execution, she and another overseer, Elisabeth Volkenrath, loudly sang songs. The life of the Angel of Death ended on the gallows on November 4th, 1945. In her last letter to her relatives, Grese wrote that she was happy to accept death for the ideals of the Third Reich. In accordance with the rules for the burial of war criminals, the burial place of Grese and her associates was never disclosed. However, in our days, fervent neo-Nazis, having studied a mass of documents, declared that they managed to find the very place where Grese's remains rest. According to the police, representatives of the young neo-Nazi generation have already begun to make pilgrimages there today,